Jamal Abdul Nasser had angered Britain as well as France. He was also supplying arms to rebels in French-occupied Algeria. That is, they were trying to end the colonial power of France. Because of this, France also began to overthrow him. Now there were two other countries apart from Israel, angry with Egypt. Thus Israeli Gurion and Moshe Dayan got the needed international support. Britain and France contacted Israel and secretly began planning a war against Egypt. The US was also angry with Egypt over the nationalization of the Suez Canal, yet the US did not want any immediate military action against Gamal Nasser. Because US President Eisenhower believed that if Egypt was attacked, the entire Arab world would look to America's enemy, Soviet Russia, for help, and join its camp. One of the reasons why America stayed away from this crisis was that the presidential election was due in November 1956. President Eisenhower was running a re-election campaign and did not want a war that would negatively affect his voters. The British and French prime ministers told U.S. Secretary of State John Foster Gamal Abdul Nasser's actions were Hitler-like. So they should avoid laxity to the Egyptian president given to Hitler before World War I. In response, John Foster said that force would be the last resort in this case. John Foster's words led Britain and France to believe the United States was talking about supporting them in the war. However, what the U.S. Secretary of State said was that he would negotiate with them before using force. So Britain and France on this impression signaled Israel for military action. From October 22 to 24, the representatives of the three states met in Sèvres, France. A secret agreement was made here called the Sèvres Protocol. It was agreed that the Israeli army would attack the Sinai Desert and Gaza. But Britain and France will not immediately participate in this war and pretend to be neutral. Then they will give an ultimatum to both Egypt and Israel to withdraw their forces 10 miles on either side of the Suez Canal. All three countries knew Egypt would refuse to accept this ultimatum because the Sinai Desert is part of Egypt, so it would not agree to vacate it. So it was planned that in case of refusal by Egypt, Britain and France would join the war. Using Egypt's refusal as an excuse, their forces will occupy the cities of Port Said and Port Fouad on either side of the north of the Suez Canal. Then advancing along the banks of the canal, they get control of the entire canal. After consolidating their position in the Suez Canal, the Allied forces would attack Cairo and overthrow Gamal Abdul Nasser. The three countries made this plan and kept it secret from the US. Britain alerted its two air bases in Cyprus and Malta for this war. Second part, in addition, 5 British and 2 French aircraft carriers were also deployed in the Mediterranean Sea between Cyprus and Egypt. Along with them, many other warships were also brought with thousands of soldiers on board. On October 29, 1956, the war plan of the Allies began to be implemented. The Allies had a major advantage from the start of the war. That is, the Egyptian army was not expecting a major war at all. It regarded it as a political and economic issue. This means, a surprise attack was being prepared for them. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon on October 29, Israeli planes bombed Egyptian military bases and airfields in the Sinai Desert. A detachment of Israeli paratroopers, commanded by Colonel Ariel Sharon, landed at Mitla Pass inside the Sinai Desert. This is the same Ariel Sharon, who later became the Israeli Prime Minister. They landed at a very important for the advance towards the Suez Canal. Paratroopers occupied this important route. On the other hand, Israeli forces crossed the Sinai Desert from 4 places. An army bypassed Gaza and marched to Al Arish, the central city of the Sinai Desert. The Second Army attacked Ras El Nakb, an area near the coast of Aqaba. The Israeli army also crossed the border between Al Arish and Ras El Nakb. Hundreds of Israeli tanks and armored vehicles took part in this entire attack. The surprise attacks confused the Egyptians to know what was going on. Even the main commander of the Egyptian army, Abdul Hakim Amir, initially thought it was a raid by a few Israeli soldiers. But after a long time, when he realized the enemy had regular attack on them and was continuing to occupy their territory, he became alert. But by that time the Israeli army had come deep into the Sinai Desert. Still, the Egyptian army made a concerted effort. Egyptian planes began bombing the advancing Israeli army. The Egyptian army surrounded some Israelis near Jabal Haytan. However, timely help reached the Jewish forces and the Egyptians had to retreat. There were also several dogfights between Egyptian and Israeli planes. Among them, at least 8 Egyptian planes were destroyed. Egyptian planes and anti-aircraft guns shot down 2 Israeli planes and damaged 2. When the Egyptian army was fully focused on fighting in the Sinai Desert, Gamal Abdul Nasser received an ultimatum from Britain and France. It told him to withdraw his army from the Sinai Desert and move back 10 miles from the Suez Canal on mainland Egypt. The Egyptian president was surprised by this ultimatum. The Sinai Desert was their territory and they could not leave it. He strongly rejected this ultimatum. You know, this was the plan of the Allies. So they started phase 2 of the mission. On October 31, British and French planes flew from aircraft carriers in Cyprus and Malta and attacked Egypt together.